You think you lack discipline. You've told yourself this story 100 times. You set a goal. You break it. You make a plan. You abandon it. You promise yourself this time will be different, and 3 days later, you're exactly where you started. And every time this happens, you conclude the same thing. There's something wrong with you. You're just not a disciplined person. Some people have it. You don't. But what if I told you that's completely wrong? What if the problem isn't you at all? What if discipline has nothing to do with personality and everything to do with the system you're using? Because here's what nobody tells you. Discipline isn't something you have. It's something you build. And I'm going to show you exactly how, using examples from neuroscience, elite performance, and people who went from complete chaos to rock-solid consistency. Let me start with something that's going to sound harsh, but stay with me. When you say you're not disciplined, what you're really saying is you haven't built an environment that makes discipline inevitable. You're trying to willpower your way through a system designed to make you fail. Think about it. You decide you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. So, you set an alarm. That's your system. One alarm, one decision point. One moment where your tired brain gets to vote on whether this goal matters. Of course you fail. Your system is a single point of failure. Now compare that to someone who actually wakes up at 5 a.m. consistently. They don't set one alarm. They put their phone across the room so they have to stand up. They set the coffee maker on a timer so the smell wakes them up. They lay out their workout clothes the night before. They tell a friend they'll text them when they're up. They've removed 5 different decision points and replaced them with automatic triggers. They haven't relied on discipline. They've engineered inevitability. Here's what's actually happening in your brain when you try to use willpower. Every decision you make drains a limited resource. Researchers call it ego depletion. You wake up with a full tank of decision-making fuel, and every choice burns some of it. What to wear? What to eat? Should you check your phone? Should you respond to that email? By noon, you're running on fumes, and then you expect yourself to make the hard choice, the disciplined choice, the one that requires you to do something uncomfortable instead of something easy. You're asking your weakest self to make your most important decisions. The people you think are naturally disciplined aren't operating on more willpower. They've structured their lives so the hard choices happen when they're strongest, or better yet, so they're not really choices at all. They've turned discipline into automation. Let me give you an example that makes this crystal clear. There's a study where they looked at military members, people you'd assume are the most disciplined humans on Earth. And you know what they found? Service members weren't more disciplined in their personal lives than anyone else. They weren't better at sticking to diets or managing money or keeping personal commitments. But put them in a military environment with structure, accountability, clear protocols, and suddenly they're models of consistency. The moment you take the same person out of that system and put them in an environment with no structure, the discipline evaporates. It was never about personality. It was always about the system. The uniform made them punctual, not their character. The inspection made them clean, not their values. The formation made them show up, not their motivation. Now here's where this gets really interesting. There's a concept called implementation intentions. Sounds academic, but it's incredibly practical. Standard goal setting says, I want to exercise more. Implementation intentions say, when my alarm goes off at 6 a.m., I will put on my running shoes and go to the gym. See the difference? One is a wish. The other is a trigger in a specific action. Researchers tested this. They took 3 groups trying to exercise more. Group 1 just set the goal. Group 2 made a detailed plan. Group 3 used implementation intentions, creating if-then statements. Group 1, 35% followed through. Group 2, 55%. Group 3, 91%. Same people, same goal, different system. The 91% weren't more disciplined. They had a better system. But let's go deeper. Because there's something else at play here that most people completely miss. You think discipline means resisting temptation. I'm going to tell you something that's going to change everything. The most disciplined people don't resist temptation. They engineer their environment so temptation never shows up. This is critical. Let me show you why. Your brain operates on a simple principle. It always picks the path of least resistance. Always. If the cookies are on the counter, you'll eat them. If the cookies are in the basement, in a locked container, under a box, you won't. Not because you're more disciplined in scenario 2, but because the friction increased. James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits. He calls it reducing friction for good behaviors and increasing friction for bad ones. But here's what he doesn't emphasize enough. This isn't a nice productivity hack. This is the entire game. Every behavior has a friction cost. Disciplined people don't pay that cost with willpower. They redesign the environment so the behavior they want is cheaper, and the behavior they don't want is more expensive. Let me make this even more concrete. Say you want to stop checking social media first thing in the morning. Most people try to just not do it. They rely on discipline. They fail within 48 hours. Someone who understands systems deletes the apps from their phone, logs out of the browser versions, puts their phone in another room overnight, changes their morning routine so they brew coffee, read for 10 minutes, then shower before they even see their phone. They didn't use discipline. They made the undisciplined behavior nearly impossible. That's the difference. Discipline isn't about fighting yourself. It's about making the fight unnecessary. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like I'm saying you have no control, that you're just a victim of your environment. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you have complete control, but you're using it in the wrong place. You're using it to fight moment-to-moment battles instead of designing the war, so you win by default. The control is in the setup, not the execution. Think about a pilot. When a plane is in the air, the pilot isn't manually adjusting every single control surface every single second. That would be exhausting and impossible. They set the autopilot. They define the parameters. The system does the rest. They intervene when necessary, but most of the flight is automated. Your life should work the same way. You design the system once, and it runs. You're not white-knuckling your way through every day. You're making strategic decisions about structure, then letting the structure do the work. Here's another layer to this. Accountability is a system component, not a personal strength. You think people who achieve big goals are just internally motivated. That's not how it works. They have external accountability built in. They have a coach. They have a workout partner. They have money on the line. They post their progress publicly. They've made it painful to quit. I used to think asking for accountability was a sign of weakness. Now, I realize it's a sign of intelligence. You're not strong enough to do it alone. Nobody is. The people who look like they are have just hidden their accountability structures. They've internalized systems that used to be external. Let me give you a framework you can use right now. I call it the 3-layer system. Layer 1 is environment design. Remove friction from good behaviors. Add friction to bad ones. Want to read more? Put books everywhere. On your nightstand, in your car, in your bathroom. Want to eat better? Don't buy junk food. You can't eat what's not there. Layer 2 is implementation intentions. For every goal, write down the specific trigger and action. When X happens, I will do Y. When I feel stressed, I will take 5 deep breaths. When I finish lunch, I will walk for 10 minutes. Layer 3 is accountability. Find someone or something that makes your commitment public and creates a cost for failure. Tell your partner. Join a group. Hire a coach. Bet money with a friend. These 3 layers don't require discipline. They manufacture it. Here's the test. For the next 2 weeks, pick one behavior you've been failing at. Don't try to be more disciplined. Instead, redesign the system. Apply all 3 layers. Change your environment. Set a clear implementation intention. Add accountability. Track what happens. The truth is, discipline is the result, not the cause. When you have strong systems, you appear disciplined. When you don't, you appear weak. But appearance is all it is. The person who looks disciplined to you is fighting just as many internal battles. They've just set up the game, so they win more of them. And here's the beautiful part. Once you realize this, the shame goes away. You stop thinking there's something fundamentally wrong with you. You stop comparing yourself to people who seem effortlessly consistent. You realize they're not effortless. They're systematic. And you can be too, because discipline isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a system you build, piece by piece, decision by decision, structure by structure. So stop trying to be more disciplined. Start building better systems. Because the goal isn't to become someone else. The goal is to design a life where the best version of you is the automatic version of you. That's not discipline. That's just good engineering.